it's Chi-Town, it's Bears on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the likes.
Ben Johnson just sent a clear message to the Chicago Bears. Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Bears fans, make sure you do me another huge favor by also hitting the like button on today's episode of Keek on the Mic. All right, Bears fans, so I'm not sure if you guys were watching the Thursday night matchup between the Detroit Lions and the Green Bay Packers, but the Thursday night team was talking to NFL insider Albert Breer, which Albert Breer, when he talks, you should really listen. He has a lot of deep intel, not only on the Chicago Bears, but on the entire National Football League. So when he tends to speak, I tend to listen. Obviously, a hot candidate to be the next Chicago Bears head coach is Ben Johnson. I know that Albert Breer and Ian Rappaport have reported before the interest that the Chicago Bears have in Ben Johnson and vice versa. I truly believe that Ben Johnson has some interest in being the Chicago Bears head coach. But there's also been some reports that Ben Johnson wants to make sure he goes to a not dysfunctional franchise. And we all know that the Chicago Bears franchise is truly dysfunctional. And he also hinted that he wants to make sure that he aligns with the GM, meaning he wants to make sure he likes the GM, that the GM has, job security for the next couple of years. And when Albert Breer reported last night ahead of the Thursday night matchup between the Lions and Packers, it seemed that the report was hinted towards the Chicago Bears, almost like Ben Johnson saying, hey, Chicago, if you really want me to be your next head coach, these are the things that you need to do. Bears fans, check out this video on what Albert Breer had to say about the situation of Ben Johnson possibly going to the Chicago Bears.
So Albert, when you have the success that Detroit's had, other teams will want to raid your coaching staff. What are you hearing on all that?
Well, Ben Johnson's certainly going to be at the top of a lot of lists, but the Lions offensive coordinator is planning on taking a very different approach to this hiring cycle than he has to the last couple. He will not chase interviews. If he takes an interview, it's going to be with the intention of actually pursuing the job. And to that end, he has a couple of criteria. Number one, he'll be looking for organizational alignment, in particular between the GM and the head coach. And then he'll be looking for a recognition from the organization of the things that have gone wrong and a willingness to fix them.
All right, Bears fans, this is a really interesting statement from Albert Breer. Obviously, one of the things that he said about Ben Johnson during this next head coaching cycle is that he will not be chasing any interviews, right? One of the big things for Ben Johnson is that if he plans to take any interviews with other teams in the National Football League, it's with intent that he will sign a contract and become the next head coach of that franchise. He also mentioned that one of the biggest things for Ben Johnson is the alignment between himself and the general manager. So when you think about what Ben Johnson's kind of looking for, and I know a lot of people have been kind of have an uproar about Ben Johnson making demands, which to me, it doesn't bother me whatsoever. We all know that the Chicago Bears are a very dysfunctional franchise. So let's say Ben Johnson wanted to be the next Chicago Bears head coach and the Bears wanted him to be the next head coach of the franchise. They need to figure a lot of things out because yes, we are a dysfunctional franchise. It has not worked in the past with many different head coaches. So if I'm Ben Johnson, I want to make sure I'm protecting myself as well. Of course, he has not proved that he can be a head coach, but at the same time, I don't blame him wanting to protect himself and making sure the situation that he is going into is, I wouldn't say perfect, but make sure he can have long-term success. And he's not like Matt Eberflus or Matt Nagy, Mark Trestman and John Fox, all the guys that didn't work out in Chicago before him. So to me, it makes a whole lot of sense. But going back to what Albert Breer had to say, one of the biggest things he wants is alignment with his general manager to make sure that that person has job security. So to me, if this is true, to me, the Bears are in a serious dilemma. Of course, Kevin Warren has come out and said, hey, Ryan Poles is our general manager. He will lead the search for the Chicago Bears' next head coach. But to me, I'm not sure what the job security looks like long-term for Ryan Poles. He has now been a part of 3 losing seasons with the Chicago Bears. And I'm not sure long-term if he will be the Bears GM. So in Ben Johnson's viewpoint, that might scare him away. So the Chicago Bears have to basically prove to Ben Johnson what they are planning to do long term to fix their current situation, to make them feel good about the long-term success of the organization. And he wants to make sure that Ryan Poles is there for the long haul, because he doesn't want to sign a contract to be the next Chicago Bears head coach. But then after one season, let's say the season doesn't go well, then Ryan Poles would possibly be fired. And now look at this. There's no stability for Ben Johnson. He will now have a brand new general manager that he may not be aligned with. So to me, I understand that there's a lot of people out there saying, hey, this is crazy. Ben Johnson, why are you doing this? Why are you being such a diva? Why do you want, asking for all these demands when you haven't even proved that you can be a head coach? But to me, it makes all the sense in the world. To me, if you really look at it, he's doing great as offensive coordinator with the Detroit Lions. He loves Dan Campbell. He loves the city of Detroit. Look at what he's been able to do with the Detroit Lions. So to me, there's really no reason for him to leave unless it's basically a perfect situation for him to go to. He doesn't want to leave Detroit and come to Chicago, and it's for his career to be ruined because the Bears organization can't get out of their own way, and they continue to be a dysfunctional organization. So long term, if they really want Ben Johnson, they really have to come up with reasons and basically convince him that, Ryan Poles is here to stay. Maybe that means you give Ryan Poles a contract extension to prove that, hey, you're aligned with Ryan Poles. You guys will be in this together long term. Other than that, I don't really think Ben Johnson is going to want to come to the Chicago Bears unless the Chicago Bears can prove to him that, one, Ryan Poles here for the long term. And two, I know that we haven't been a good organization in the past, but we feel like we can do A, B, and C to make sure our organization's going in the right step. And we feel like you are the perfect coach to get us there, right? And once again, Bears fans, it makes all the sense in the world. You think of Ben Johnson, what he's been able to do with a guy like Jared Goff. And Jared Goff, to me, is a very good quarterback. But I feel like when I look at a quarterback like Caleb Williams, I think he will be a step above Jared Goff in the long haul. And to me, I think Ben Johnson would be the perfect head coach, not only for the Chicago Bears, but for Caleb Williams long term. And yes, there is that risk because he's never been a head coach. But overall, what he's done with the Detroit Lions is very impressive. And at the end of the day, I think Ben Johnson is interested in the Chicago Bears. And I think the Chicago Bears are interested in Ben Johnson. So at the end of the day, these next couple months are going to be very interesting. But overall, I think Ben Johnson will be one of the top head coaching candidates for the Chicago Bears moving forward. So Bears fans, before I let you guys go, how do you guys feel about this report of the demands that Ben Johnson is basically making before he becomes a head coach of an NFL organization? Let me know down below in the comment section. But as always, Bears fans, make sure you continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Keek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. But other than that, be back for an all new Bears podcast right here on Keek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the Mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the Mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't Keek on the